matters. And so this morning, he's going to be addressing us around excellent schools by design, and I'm quite keen to listen to what he has to say. I believe he will also perhaps touch on turning schools around, which is a hot topic in many of our schools. So without further ado, Dr. Namawe Khalid, welcome to the podium.
Morning, colleagues. Great to be here. I'm so used to having a controller so that I can move around. Now I'm stuck at the podium, so maybe it's good for the first time. Firstly, I want to just use the first minute and speak to SAPA in general. And 2 days ago I spoke at the SAPA Gauteng conference. There are two responsibilities for principals. The one is to make sure that you protect your rights, and that's why you belong to a union. But there's another part which talks about the responsibility and your obligation, and that is why SAPA, I think, has been formed. And I want to urge you not to lose your focus, that your focus has to be the responsibility of principals and the obligation, instead of you becoming another union. And if you're going to go in that direction, you're going to be a small fish in a big pond. If you stay within the field of roles and responsibilities, then you're a big fish in a very small pond, because we don't have strong professional association. So I want to urge you, because I've been following SAPA for a while, and I'm concerned that you could be taken over by the union rights thinking than the responsibility thinking. Let me get to this, the presentation. Before the one in Cape Town at Camps Bay and this one, I used to talk about school turnaround. And I've changed it to talking about schools of excellence, because school turnaround is the process to get to excellence. So this work is, those of you who want to download it, you can go onto slideshare.net and you will be able to download this presentation. Also, there's a website and a Facebook page where you can follow this work. Why is it that we need to talk about, we need to change things? I think if someone who passed on before 1994 gets resurrected, and it's a teacher, we can actually employ that person very easily, just teach the person the kind of new acronyms. And so very little has changed in our education system, whilst our previous system by design for black education was to ensure that education is not successful. By design. There's a whole lot of quotes which I don't need to repeat, like for good, black people shouldn't do maths beyond standard 2, and all of those things. So the system was by design to give us, and often we forget that the kind of pass rate of DET was between 30 and 40% historically. Somehow we forget about that. So it was by design that. And I'm arguing that if that was by design so, then we by design need to change our system. It's not just going to come right. We have to do that. So I'm pleased that the SG spoke about this one, so I'm going to give you an example of data from the TIM study, 2003. And those of you who do research and is going to say to me the data is dated, well, we were doing 2006 from the TIM study. And by the way, a lot of people don't know is that the ANA was a result of us withdrawing from the international research, and we decided that we will do our own research comparison internally. So those who are arguing that we need to get away from Anna, it's a very, very dangerous argument. That any country who's not comparing itself to other countries can go down a very slippery slope. Because you can just do what you want to. So this, the last time we participated, and you will see that in all of the studies. So what's the term study? Every 4 years they do the study, the big one, and they invite countries, and they only accept 40 countries. And since 1994 we've been the flavor of the world, and they would take us on. And every time we participate in it, we will be 40th. But I don't want to speak to you about the fact that we are 40th. And the SG alluded to this point. I want to show you on this graph, there's a blue line, so that indicates South Africa's worst performing schools. That's the blue line. So that's the grey on the left. That's our average, and the red is the best performing schools in our country. You can all see that. So if that's the case, I want you to take the dot up and tell me a story. How do we fare in comparison to Singapore? What is the story showing?
It's not equal to the worst.
Our best performing schools are performing at the same level as their worst performing schools. The SG spoke about quality education. So in our schools, all of the kids who are walking out of our walls with trophies and certificates, if they were in Singapore, they would have been the Alson kids. So what we're talking about is not a problem of our learners. We have a systems problem. Okay? We need to do something about it. Now, poor Ghana, who's second last, since we withdrew, Ghana is now last. And the last time I heard that Ghana is busy negotiating with us because they know when we come back, we claim that space right at the bottom. That's ours. So that's the situation, and you can see that there are African countries above us. Our budget comparison to those countries, and our work also in Ethiopia, often with UNICEF, it's astounding. The second data, I'm just going to show you 3 data sets. This is the World Economic Forum data, where, can you remember the minister was saying this research was not done well and they should have done this, that and the other. It's embarrassing if your minister is arguing that researchers must change their research methodology to fit your country. Okay? But we made a big deal about this one. The fact that out of, and you can see ranking on top, it says this study was done with 148 countries. In terms of quality of maths and science, we number 148 out of 148. There's no one below us. Nothing. We're there. But no one spoke about this one. The fact that our entire system is number 146, third from the bottom. I get a sense as long as we're not last, we're not concerned. We're third last, it's fine. So what are we building on? The system that we inherited was a system that's called liberal education, international. So what the apartheid system did was took that liberal system, put a racial cloak on it. In 1994, we all rushed to it to get away from the racial cloak, but we left the class cloth. And your SG spoke about the inequalities. Because your education system is designed for middle class kid as the default kid walking into your school. And I think you often hear the reference to, you know, if just different kids can walk into our schools. You've heard that? So that reference is actually, if just middle class kids who fit nicely into the system. The danger of that reference is it's dangerous in the sense that kids can also ask, if just different teachers can walk into our schools, we can do better. Okay? And so the system is designed around it. And what is startling is we've adopted that liberal education system and is doing exactly what Einstein said we should not do. He says, don't focus on content. You need to focus on the thinking skills. But all we are measuring is content skills. So we take an idea internationally and we're doing exactly what people say you should not do. The last that I want to share with you is obviously the horrific dropout that we have. Less than half of our kids reach, those who join grade 1, less than half of them to get to grade 12. So, based on 2014, about 571,000 learners in the system reached grade 12. But they were 1.277 million when they started in grade 1. What happened to the others? I know what happened to the others. Education is supposed to make people independent. If you don't have education, you're dependent. And dependency gets sorted out through two ways. Either people give you something, or if they don't give you, you take. That's it. There's no other way of doing it. And so we are designing what's happening in our country. That's by design. So that's the benchmark. And so just a quick, I don't know, why am I using 2014? Because the National Department has been questioned by the unions a lot since 2005 about the throughput, and lo and behold, we came up with a concept called progress learners. Remember that? 2015, you were shocked. And you couldn't understand why. So what happened? You progress 110,000 learners from grade 11 to grade 12. What is happening? Your data is immediately changing, that your throughput now from 46% jumps up to 55%. So that's good. So it's fixing up your throughput because more is getting to grade 12. But now you discover in May that because you have progressed the learners, your matric results is going to drop. And then they send you a letter saying, oh, remember that progress learners don't need to write the whole exam. They can write part of it. And if you don't write the whole exam, you're not counted into the big percentage. And I'm sharing this with you because you need to understand that sometimes, even at the provincial level, and I can remember working with one district and one district director refusing to let the kids only write a part of it. Because, colleagues, let me tell you, a poor kid who leaves school will never come back. Never. If you write half of your exams, in January everyone is sitting around and you sit around. Soon someone at home will tell you, you can't just sit around and eat. You need to go and work. Once you start earning, you're gone. So all of those learners who wrote part of the exam will never finish. Now, yes, you can go into our community and go and find one kid who actually did the extra and finish up. I want you to tell me what is the whole picture of it. Okay? So this only sets the tone for what I want to say. So I'm arguing that the dominant methodology at the moment, a methodology is only the way we do things, is what is called school improvement. And you guys know you submit your school improvement plan. And you all know that what you do is you change last year's 2016 to 2017 and so on. I don't expect you to admit it in front of the SG. but literally that's what's happening in the entire country. You have an online system and you're certainly not the same level as the rest of, now I work in the entire country, but that's literally what's happening. People dip now, and you can actually see the part of the tool still left and type over on the other side. Okay? And so, what is that methodology all about? That methodology is all about doing more of what you're doing and doing it better. But if you do the wrong thing and you do more of it and you're doing it better, your system is not going to improve. You need to do things differently. Now I want to put on the table an argument around that, is we need to turn around the way we do things. So what is turnaround in essence? We come from an apartheid system where it was uneven and people were in an abusive way. All we did was we took away that abuse, but the unequalness was still there. And we all strive to fix up equality and equity. I want to argue that there's a possibility of transforming and turning things around. We have moved in the country, we're about trying to fix up equality, but equality is still based on the old model of trying to move around the cakes which our people are standing on. Why not remove what is in front of you and you take away all of these? And so we need to start thinking differently about this. And we can move without. And when you think differently, money is not a problem. I don't pity, say you were saying about the money and all of that. Quite frankly, integration in this country is only a debate in Gauteng and in the Western Cape. Because in Limpopo, all of our schools are black. So how do you have a debate there? The entire community, the entire Limpopo is in Quintal 5. And so that's why there's not a big emphasis on some of the debates nationally, because the debate is a provincial or a district kind of conversation. I also want to urge you not to just think about integration as black teachers getting into white schools. I want black schools to argue that we appoint white teachers. And I want to see whether that debate is taking place in our schools. Otherwise, that's not integration. That is just getting others into white schools. That's not integration. So we need to widen the debate. So what is our focus? It's not just to take underperforming schools to high-functioning schools. It's to take schools to schools of excellence. To schools of excellence. And by the way, the kind of, now I'm with you on your SG on his Twitter, someone showed that Enter to Serve. That kind of motto has been at Malibu High for years. And that is a school with 1,482 kids. I think 2015 they had a 92% pass with 51% bachelor, and I'm going to show you an example. And so it's not thriving to be just only good, but to become excellent schools. What's the definition of an excellent school? Is a school where there is not a debate whether a kid is going to pass or fail. It's a non-entity, non-debate. Quite frankly, in those schools, they will fire you if you have an argument that the kid is going to fail. Because your job is to make the difference. So there's a whole lot of, and there's a whole research about failure is not an option. So then getting schools, a school of excellence is a school where at least more than 75% of the kids are going to get a bachelor, whether they want it or not. So they can become plumbers and welders with their bachelors. You've got a whole lot of strategies, and strategies is the way you do things, and I'm just going to share with you 4 examples of that, of the 126, because we don't have enough time. I'm going to share with you some of the strategies that we use in a school called Valentemba High, and it's a school just outside Worcester, and we got 150 learners with 5 progress learners. And we're promising, and I can declare with you now, that all of those kids are going to get a bachelor when they get to matric. Now why? What audacity do I have to stand in front of you and tell you that? It's because I have 4.5 years to do that. How dare I tell you that I can't do it, and I've still got 4.5 years. With including those 5 progress learners. And those kids have only passed twice since grade 8. Only passed twice, really. So, first question that I want to ask you. Assuming a learner from grade 7 comes to your secondary school with an average of 40% and is indicating that he or she wants to become an engineer or a doctor. Tell me what you're going to say to the kid. Don't be politically correct. What are you going to say to that learner? Just shut her out. It's far-fetched. Okay? I want to just take you through. There's a concept, one of the strategies that we use is called target setting. If you, in our school, every kid has got a target in every subject, uniquely different from anyone else that's linked to this. And I'm going to show you how we do it. The problem is, if you don't have a target, you are not accountable. You don't need to be accountable. Because how do people keep you accountable without a target? And when we talk about a target, it's something quantitative. It's not a broad kind of airy-fairy narrative statement. Okay? A narrative statement like, we will work hard, or we will improve. What does that mean? So we work with clear numbers, and let me give you an example. All of you know that thing called a promotion schedule? What do you do with it at the end of the year? You sign it, file it, give it to the district, and forget about it, and next year start again. What we do is, we take that as the planning for the following year. And all we do is we create a space, and by the way, everything we do is we guarantee it that you don't need money to go and do all of these things. You don't need fancy things. So I only have 10 minutes, I don't know whether they took some of mine. Done? Okay. So what we do is, the research is talking about adequate yearly progress, and the research is saying that all kids, all learners can improve by 5%. So what do? That kid got in English 72, so a target is 77, 68, 59, and the 33 will become? That will become 40. Because the minimum target of all of our kids would be 40. Okay? And so we complete that. And it gets generated through a system when we import the promotion schedule. If every kid is achieving their target, how many kids will fail in your school? Zero. That is how you plan for 100%, not hope for 100%. Okay? When everyone has got a target that, and you can go and do it on an Excel spreadsheet. This is the system that we have, that we generate our target. And in January, every kid gets his strip and his target, and every assessment that we do is against his or her own target in the subject. Okay? Remember, I asked you a question, if a kid comes with a 40%, will they become an engineer? You said that's a bit far-fetched. Let's walk through it. Kid comes to your school, so the target in grade 8 is now 45. Grade 9, 50. Grade 10, 55. Grade 11, 60. Grade 12, 65. But 65 is not going to give her a competitive advantage, but 80%. But if you wake up in grade 12, 15% is huge. But if you wake up in grade 8, 15% is 3% more every year. So whilst the school is placing a 5% target on the learner places an 8% on him or her. So it's then 48, 56, 64, 72, 80. I want to ask you a question. When a kid comes to your school with a 40% and says he wants to become an engineer, can he do that? Why could I convince you in 5 minutes? Why is it that I could change your mind in 5 minutes? It's because when we think about a problem in a different way, solutions become possible. Okay? So that's the second question, and I just want to rush through it because I want to get to a last one which I didn't do in Cape Town, and I want to do it here. How many of the 200 school days should you be actively facilitating or managing as a principal in your school? Of the 200 school days, other than your exam days and your sport days or Valentine's days? How many days? How many days should we be teaching? Shout. How many? You can't teach 200 days because how are you going to write exams? How many days should you be actively involved in teaching and learning? I can't hear. Just shout it out. 170. Where do you get that? First of all, do you have an instruction of a particular amount of days? Who instructed you? Where are you getting it from? There is no instruction, okay? Nowhere in the policy documents. If you take the CAPS document, you can deduce based on the 4 weeks for the year that you should be teaching, or for the 6 that you should be teaching 170 days. You can deduce, but it's not the case. There is no instruction. So do you know what's the average amount of days that is taught in South Africa? The last research we did was with Chisholm's research from 2005. It's 82 days. 82 days.
Average.
Pardon?
Average.
Yeah, average. You know average. If a school is doing more than 82, it means that there's a school that's doing less than 82. That's how average works. I got to Limpopo, and I got to hear about it, what people called Memorial Thursday. I'm not joking, guys. Memorial Thursday. So in Limpopo, with 79,000 teachers, the possibility of someone dying is great. Okay? And teachers would go to memorial service. Genuine. Now, if they go to memorial service on a Thursday, can you imagine what Friday looks like? Now, if Friday is vulnerable, can you imagine what Monday looks like? And I can tell you that maybe you're better off in this, but that's what's happening in the country. Okay? Luckily, we got the MEC and the Premier to change it in 2005. In November, we were not the happy people with SATU. Well, not yet. We were not so. The SATU guys weren't happy. Luckily for them, the MEC passed on in February 2016. And that new MEC was not brave enough to continue with that no memorial service during school time. So we literally, what we do is in September, October, we sit down with our principals, they work out when is their exam time and all other time, and they identify their 170 days. The system that we have would not count out your 170 days if you use more than 170 days. Once you identify your 170 days, what we want to do is that we want the circuit manager, the principal, and the district director sign off. And I can tell you, colleagues, that might be your most important responsibility at the school, to protect the teaching and learning days of your kids every day. Because there's plenty of people who want to come and do funny stuff, give kids bottles, and you sacrifice their teaching time. If they care about the kids so much, they can do it after school. Why should they do it during school time? Okay? So we literally, and there's an example of Massachusetts where principals need to account for the amount of days of teaching and learning. And here I'm not even talking about some of your concertina days. You know what's a concertina day? It's a day where the bell rings at 8, but you don't start working it. And you hang around, and sometimes interval, there's a big debate around something that the department has sent. An interval now is not 20 minutes or 30 minutes, becomes an hour, and suddenly the periods will change. That's a concertina day, that's not a full day. You know what I'm talking about. What's the real problem around 170 days? Is that there are about 5 types of kids in your school. The one that's the hand up all the time, and the others who just distracted. 170 days gives you enough time to also pay attention to the kid who's disconnected. But if you only have 90 days or 100 days, you don't have time for those kids, and they become distractors, interferers in your lesson, because you want to finish your curriculum, and you build up relationship problems with those. And it's not them who's the problem, it's the fact. So I want to show you the stats. If you only offer 90 days, you lose 80 days per year. In primary school, those kids will lose 560. If you add the secondary school, it's 960 days for the 12 years. And effectively, if a kid was at that school, of the 12 years, he was actually only taught for 5 years and 5.64 years. So we have plenty of kids with a 5.64 years of training, but they need to go and write a 12 years exam. And the disadvantage we need to look at instead of some of the others that we're only focusing on. I'm going to do the last one. What is the end of your first period in your school and the beginning of your second period? Anyone? 8:30, is that the end of your first period? And the starting of your next period? 8:30. So you're telling me when you end up in the one class, miraculously the kids would appear in the other class in a second? No. Anyone whose timetable has what is called transition time in between? No, don't say yes, I can come and visit your school. What's the consequence of that? If you don't have that, your kids waste about 5 to 8 minutes. And if you've got 10 periods, let's say 60 minutes a day. If you miss 60 minutes a day, you miss 5 hours a week on teaching, which you present or profess to the department according to your timetable that you're teaching, but you're not teaching the kids. And who's losing out? Them. 5 hours a week times 34 weeks in a year. Calculate how many hours of teaching your kids are missing. And that's the consequence if you don't take into account. Why is it that you will find it difficult to go and implement in your school? Because the the school that we have in Zwelithemba finishes off at 4 o'clock every day since the first day of this year. The consequence is that if you create 5 to 8 minutes of transition time, which you are well aware of at the university, they didn't have a class one after the other. They had 20 minutes or 15 minutes in between. You should have that. But the consequence is that your school cannot close before 3 or 4 o'clock. And so colleagues, these are, I wanted to do the last, but I would not, I want to end off. By the way, I'm a proponent for we need to ban homework. We can have a debate on that at another time. I want to close off with the following. I mentioned the school Malibu as an example. I built up a relationship with one of the grade 12s last year, and I've been working with that school for 2 years. And this kid came to me and he said he's going to get 6 7s, and there's just one that he's not so comfortable with, and that is, in particular, is Afrikaans. He's not going to do so well. So I had a conversation. I said, what makes you so confident you're going to get all the others? Because you haven't achieved. So this is the internal exam. And so at the end of the year, beginning of the following year, he sent me his matric results, and you can see that he got actually 5 7s and 2 6s and 2 very close to the 80. Now the reason why, and you can see his Afrikaans is 77. The reason why he got 77 is because that kid came from Zimbabwe into grade 8, and that's why he's not so good in Afrikaans. And your kids who are Afrikaans speaking don't even get the 77. So we can develop excellent schools in our communities, in our townships where they are. We don't need to carve out things out. Thank you very much.